let's go through building an immortal and powerful Netrunner in Cyberpunk 2077. I've obviously reset my abilities using a mod here. Please don't shout at me. I just feel like it's better to go through it this way because you can see where all the stat points are going to go and where all of the perk points are going to go as we go through the game. You can get additional perk points as you explore the world. If you're wondering like why I have a few extra, just go ahead and explore. A lot of them come from the NCPD missions, so just have those tagged on your map and make sure you clear them all. That's where quite a lot of good stuff is. You'll find iconic weapons and that kind of thing as well. Additionally, I don't really want to be the guy that goes and spoils all of the coolest weapons and then start showing you where all that stuff is. The real idea here is to save you a bit of time with menu surfing. So we're going to go through good perks to take as somebody that wants to run around net running, and then we'll go through the Cyberware stuff, which again I can't have any on right now because I've just unequipped everything, so I don't even have it available right now. So we'll go through Cyberware. Maybe we'll touch on the quick hacks as well, but the active playing of the game and you doing what you want to do is the part that I really think should be reserved for you personally. And so we're just going to go over the uses of things and how different stats might look and how you might want to bring them in because of certain synergies that you might have depending on where you're going to go. We're going to start out by getting our intelligence to 20. You might want to take a break from this depending on situations that you're finding yourself in as you're going through the game. The first 9 obviously unlock this first rank of abilities, and there are a lot in intelligence. Some of the time it depends on what it is that you're wanting to use. For example, with body, this middle area is the most important to us, but not until we get certain cyberware installed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pump out intelligence first, and next to your intelligence, the next thing you should really be pumping is the technical ability. This is because, as we were saying before, cyberware is very important in this game, and it's probably even more important if you want to be net running, because we're going to be trying to install quite a lot of stuff, and if we're not going to have the space and slots to put it in, then we're going to be struggling. So technical ability needs to be at least 15 to be a reasonable netrunner build. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get that put up now, and that realistically is the basis of your netrunner build. From here you can pretty much go anywhere that you want. I recommend reflexes and or body. Realistically, I think getting both of these to 15 is a reasonable idea, and we're going to go over some of that in a minute. But first, let's go into what we want out of the intelligence tree so that we can see what it is that we're going to be dealing with. So when it comes to spending your perk points, what you're going to find is we can't skip over any of these points. So to get any higher, we have to completely fill this out so that we can get the better abilities. So a lot of the time when we're going through this, I recommend getting up and to the more powerful stuff as quickly as you can. And that's going to include getting all the way up to spillover here, because I like it so that when we overclock and we upload quick hacks, they have more chance to spread. Although that's not as important potentially than having the smart synergy. So I'm going to recommend that that is optional. And instead, we're just going to head for smart synergy because I think as a net runner, we are going to want to be using smart weapons. The main reason for this is we don't want to be taking time to aim, really. We just want to be hip firing. We want to be pretty mobile if we are in combat, because we want to be avoiding taking damage, because we're actually going to be using our health to cast our powers with, to use our quick hacks. I do also recommend rushing up the right hand side. This is obviously going to improve all of your smart weapons and getting the smart synergy on there as well. So people are going to yell because they're going to say that this is absolutely essential, but that is optional for you, and if you believe that, you should include this in your build. This is a very greedy tree for us because we're net runners. The left side is going to be handling our RAM. We want to be going ahead and doing this. This is going to make it so that we can hack into stuff at less of a cost. You can see I think this explosion thing is too situational, so I actually don't use that, and I also don't care about force kill Cypher either. I don't really need to make hacking any easier, especially as we start getting higher up anyway. So I would leave both of these side ones right here. We're going to go ahead, we're going to take the hack queue. We get 1 max RAM there, as you can see, and we get quick hack queues. So now we can have 2 quick hacks. This is going to be quite important, as you guys will see as we get a bit further on. Counter hack is quite useful. This doesn't allow us to prevent ourselves getting caught. So if we start trying to stealth hack stuff, we'll have a line that builds up. And what this is actually going to do is in open combat, if there's a netrunner trying to hack you, you can hack them back. I actually do think this is quite good because it means if someone's trying to weapon jam you or something, you can just hack them straight back and get that stopped. We could take copy and paste. I haven't been into Dogtown yet. Maybe there's something there that requires this amount of combat focus. But a lot of the time when I'm in open combat, I just don't actually feel the need because I've generally got that many hacks going out anyway. I don't feel the need to copy and paste it. So maybe that's optional. And like I say, we want to try and stay lean at the moment because we're trying to unlock all of the good stuff. We may come back into some of these menus to backfill, but the idea here is to get all of the most important important stuff unlocked. And we really want to get to Q acceleration because we've got +1 maximum RAM. We've got -1 cost to quick hacking devices and vehicles. Well, that's useful. And we get even more quick hack Q size, as well as more upload speed, which is all just going to be really, really good. I don't care too much about data recycler. This actually might be really good, but I haven't really used it very much. We can have faster RAM recovery rate for each one currently in a queue. Obviously kind of good. You'd probably take that. I am actually going to opt not to take the monowire. I'm actually going to opt to not take any hand weapons in general because I'm going to save that Cyberware space to take more stuff to do with net running. So I personally don't like to play as a melee character at all. If I'm going to be playing as a netrunner, I pretty much avoid that kind of thing all of the time. So we don't really want the live wire finisher. 50% load speed for the first quick hack when you have 2 more queued on an enemy. Kind of good if you're really going to start spamming lots of quick hacks on the same enemy, but not that important in my opinion. Q root, pretty much essential. -1 RAM cost for each hack type. So if we put ping on something, and then we put a detonate grenade on something, and then we put something else on there. So that allows us to just save a little bit of RAM as we're in combat, and that is going to be useful. Because we're going to be using overclock from the other side, you are going to want to have your RAM recovery also regen your health. So that's pretty big, because we're going to have a lot of RAM recovery. This is a part of what's going to make us even more immortal, especially when you look at how this is going to interact with some of the other perks we're going to look at later on. And mostly because we've unlocked it, and it looks like it should be important, we're going to take Blood Demon. It is useful. Basically, it means that if somebody has quick hacks left on them when we neutralize them, we're going to get a heal out of that, which I guess synergizes a lot with data recycler, so we probably should take that at the same time. Back onto the center then. Let's see what else we want to backfill from here. Reduced RAM cost, closer you are to a target. Kinda good. We might take that. I don't care about traceability. I don't care about subordination. We'll take speculation because that means if we defeat an enemy that has a queue of quick hacks on there, this is recovery for quick hacks that are affecting the target. If we do something like affect something with contagion and then overheat, which when we get to higher levels, we can turn that into a bit of an explosion. We'll be able to recover quite a lot of the RAM from the attacks that we're making on enemies. Maintaining that kind of style, we are going to come across from the right hand side here so that we can recover even more RAM as we're defeating enemies with smart weapons. This does make us very heavily invested into smart weaponry. Make sure that you bear that in mind if you follow all of this. I don't find it too interesting to take the ice pick or the siphon. This is kind of more if you want to be a stealth hacker realistically, because this is control and covert quick hacks. I don't really bother with any of that too much. It is a viable thing, but I feel like we can get so powerful that it probably isn't all that important unless that's just how you want to play. So consider that if you want to be more in the shadows. Realistically, we can skip over that. We don't need Shadowrunner for the same reasons, but we will obviously just take straight up base damage on the quick hacks. I don't find Race Against Time to be all that useful. You're going to see why, because our health is going to effectively be always at the top because we're going to have that many ways to regenerate it that's probably a wasted point. And the same is going to go for Power Surge, which means my recommendation, and this is probably a little bit fluffed out, you don't really need this many points in here, but this is how we're going to start looking like a really strong Netrunner. So this is what you probably want to end up looking like. Quickly touch on Q Mastery, but this is just so expensive. Realistically, the only time to use it is against a boss, so you may take something out somewhere just to have this so that you can have more damage against a single enemy. But realistically, as we are just running around in a generalist style, this is ultimately all that we need to make our Netrunner really powerful. With that done, we want to head over to technical ability because we really need to get our Cyberware online. We're going to have to fill in all these points, like we said before. I do recommend having Renaissance Punk because that extra capacity is going to come in useful. Because we have so many attribute points available as we level up now, we can actually proc this for the maximum amount it's going to give to us if we really want to. Although I will probably leave one of these at 4. But we may just take cool so we can get extra movement speed while crouched and some extra stealth out of mitigation if we want it. But I don't think I care about getting all 3 of these to 9. Getting 4 points of extra Cyberware across all of those is useful. So I do recommend Renaissance Punk. We will want driver update. I don't find Chipware Connoisseur to be that important. But basically this is going to make it so that when we get Cyberware in later on, we'll get additional stat modifiers out of it. And you can't be cheeky. So we can't do this, upgrade the Cyberware, take it off, and then put it over here because it will only be active whilst we have this on. So make sure you have this on. This is just going to give you overall better stats. Crafting components from looting. Technically not necessary for combat, but we do need a lot of crafting components as we go through the games. This is pretty important. You might even decide to spec into tech to get this early because the more crafting components you get as you're going through the game, the better that's going to make life for you. Once we've filled all of a certain type of Cyberware, which we're going to do, we get -5% to all incoming damage. That is obviously powerful and it's going to stack with some other stuff that we get on later on. This is just going to feed into our immortality style of play. Further up then, you can see we're going to get even more stuff. This unlocks a slot for us to put put even more cyberware on. We're going to extend the duration of cyberware effects, which I believe includes overclock because that is a cyberware effect. So we will obviously be wanting that. Reduce cooldowns for cyberware as well. Oh, look at that. This is amazing. The ambidextrous cyberware slot is completely optional, and when I think about it, we don't really need the second slot. If I change my mind once we get to installing cyberware, I'll probably change my mind, but we can save some cyberware space by not taking this, and that's going to be pretty important, so you guys will see as we continue on. The weapons that this upgrades are tech weapons. You guys probably already know, but there are different ways that weapons are identified. Some might be considered elemental, and that's what I would consider like a tech, smart, or power weapon, and some are more of a weapon type. So for example, there is an assault rifle, an SMG, and a sniper rifle. To get the most out of your perk points and your character build, what you should probably try to do, and this is probably a good advice for any type of build, is pick an elemental type, so in our case smart weapons, and then a weapon type. So in my opinion, for most smart users is going to be SMGs and assault rifles, which is why I think reflex gets really good crossover with the Netrunner, especially if you want to be like a fast Netrunner that's going around. And I would consider air dash to be just 100% required when it comes to exploring the world, so we are going to be taking reflexes anyway. So I actually think that we have really good synergy with this stuff over here. It's up to you. Do you want to bring in some tech weapons and therefore improve them? It's actually pretty cheap for us to do anyway because we have all of this unlocked, and it is only going to cost us a few perk points to do this. This is 100% optional, so we will leave this until last before we put any points into tech weapons. Something that is not going to be optional is coming over to the left hand side. This is because we really want to have the additional health item charge and recharge speed when we're outside of combat, as well as the health recharge speed. That means we also want to have increased recharge speed up here for our health items, but we actually don't need to go any further than that. So we can actually leave that and then come on back down. We won't need field medic. You're going to see why once we get to cyberware. But basically, we're going to make it so that we can automatically use health items whenever our health goes low. Now, the reason that's important is because, as you might see with overclock here, as we're using quick hacks in combat and we're overclocked, we can drop our health pretty low pretty fast. And so having health items that auto use themselves and recharge faster is absolutely key to having a nice smooth experience as we are going through the game. Which also means we'll take first aid as well. 15% recharge speeds for health items when you've only used one charge. That has us with all of the things that we need from the technical ability side of things. So as you can see at this point, I've got quite a lot of options because I'm a bit higher level. Where would I suggest you go after getting your technical ability to 15? I would probably get both of these to 9 next so that we can get even more cyberware capacity. And that is the minimum that we need for our Renaissance Punk to get the most value. With that done then, that means we get the second rank of a lot of this, and immediately it should be pretty obvious that we can go ahead and get some improvements to our assault rifles and SMGs, and these are basically going to be stamina and reload bonuses. So we'll go ahead and take that so that we're ready for when we get this up to 15, as well as doing the same thing with the main abilities in the center. We don't care about anything to do with blades. I don't think vaulting and climbing speed is particularly important because we're mostly going to be jumping around once we get further up. Although I would consider the ability to reload while sprinting, sliding, and vaulting to be pretty important, as well as shooting while doing those same things. Although I'm not terribly bothered about being able to shoot while sprinting because we'll be aiming a lot of the time anyway. However, I would like to be able to shoot while dashing. When we're just starting out in the body tree then, I don't think there's a terrible amount that we need straight away. So we'll just take painkiller because that just gives us slow regen in combat, and this is actually pretty interesting because this is increased regen the more health we lose, which when you think about overclocking, it means the more health that we use overclocking, the faster this is actually going to work. We are probably interested in both of those in body, which means that we're now in a position where we might start increasing these stats again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get these to 15, and as you can see on my build, this is where things are going to start getting very competitive between the two trees. I do consider the mid-air dash 100% essential, and you're going to see why. It's going to be in the video, which we'll get a little bit later on. We don't really care about the mitigation too much right now. It could be important, especially if you want to be stealthy, but we don't really need it, and I don't really think we need the mid-air maneuverability either. This does, however, give us access to sharpshooter and the ability to increase our crit chance and damage, as well as armor penetration as we continually shoot at enemies. This is massive for rapid fire smart weapons because it just means we can just blast rounds out at things and continually do even more damage for as long as we are firing rounds, which actually makes us out of perk points, even at my level, which is the sad thing. There's so many options here that we can use. And the main things that we're looking for in body is up here at the top. We're going to be getting extra health. We're going to be getting health regen bonus to all regen effects. So all effects, no matter where they come from. And being as we just got a few extras out of places like technical ability, and we're going to actually get increased regen out of sublimation, this is actually just going to be massive for us. And in addition to that, we'll actually be able to eventually unlock adrenaline rush mode, which feeds into the pain to gain, which basically means once you use a health item, so your health goes low, you use a health item, that's going to give you an adrenaline bar. And once you have this top one, once you have that adrenaline bar, your health items recharge faster, which basically gives us an infinite loop of healing, thereby completing the immortality jutsu that we need for the build. This is obviously going to take me a few more levels because we do need to get this up to 20. We do need an additional 4 perk point, which you would have to take from somewhere else in the build if you wanted to do it. So maybe if you really wanted the health regen, you might take some of the points out of your weaponry. But I really feel like this does a lot for your smart weapons to have that crit chance and damage and the reduced armor on your enemies as you are fighting them. So I think this does a lot for your build for those few times when you can't get your quick hacks off. This means that my final 5 points are going to have to go into body, as I really want to be able to get this final upgrade on, because this is actually going to be a very big focus for me over the next few hours of me playing. I will be streaming later on today from when I'm recording this. And with my last 8 points, I have a choice really of, I can either up cool to 9, which would unlock some additional stuff with focus, which I don't need. We could be better with throwables, which we don't need. So I would probably max out reflexes to 20 and then put 1 point in cool with some free points left over. Maybe I'd put them in technical ability for those extra points in armor, or maybe we'd go into cool for that extra crit damage. That's going to be up to you guys. But yeah, ultimately we're going to end up 20, 20, 20, and then a little bit left over. But the reason you might take this is so that you can have the better sneaking. But that is how we are looking stat-wise and how I recommend that we go. With our stats looked at then, and a look at what you're going to need to start getting this on the road, make sure you have all of your stuff that's going to give you the Cyberware boosts, so that we can now go ahead and visit Ripperdoc so we can start getting things installed. Unfortunately, there are a lot of best-in slots that just make things really easy to pick. For example, I don't think there's any competition when it comes to the best Cyberdeck for us. I think the best thing to pick is just the Tetronic Rippler. There is one that's a little bit better for stealth. I think it's the Netwatch driver is a little bit more geared towards stealth. The Paraline is a bit more open combat. I guess if you really wanted to be just like an overclocked smart weapon fighter, you could make an argument for the Paraline. So you could overclock and then you're going to get even more electrical damage with the monowire or smart weapons. If you're playing as a Netrunner, I don't think there's any competition for the Tetronic Rippler. That's the one that's going to go straight in. This gives you all the RAM that you need, and it has a ton of extra bonuses for your quick hacks because we're getting 50% extra weapon damage anyway against enemies that have got a non-combat quick hack on. So that means we can ping everybody and get 15% damage bonus, and then our quick hacks get more damage as well after we do that. And I guess we'll start with the Cyberware that is most important to Netrunners, and that is the Cortex. You'll find that a lot of this stuff kind of ends up leaning towards different builds. So realistically speaking, if you want to get hacking lots, this is where you want to start. And as I said before, I'm not putting arms in because I don't want to use all of this Cyberware space just for a set of arms when we've got way more important stuff to be filling in. When it comes to this then, I don't think we need to look much further than the EX disk. This is upload speed and RAM space. There is a reason to maybe consider taking something else in this one's place, and that, in my opinion, is the bioconductor for the crit chance. The reason I say those two are interchangeable is because both of them are upping your DPS directly, and you could choose to put this stuff over here, but we really want to have things like the RAM recovery rate from the RAM upgrade. Just remember, this is not only going to be recovering RAM, but when we're in overclock mode, this is going to be giving us health regen, which is going to be getting compounded by all of the stats that we have in body. So this is pretty massive. We can't really go without the RAM upgrade. And the same thing goes for the Camillo RAM manager, because this means when we drop below 20% of our available RAM, we're going to get 26% back when this is upgraded. So this means we can just happily be firing out loads of quick hacks, and then we're going to recover a load of it. And then if our RAM goes low again, we can activate overclock so that we can continue hacking. You could argue, if you want to be in overclock a lot more, you could put the axolotl on. So you could be reducing your cooldowns so that you can use this more in combat. But the issue with this is, A, it's not going to help you during boss fights, and B, probably won't be in combat for that long anyway if you're dealing this amount of damage out across your quick quickhacks. Next up, let's talk about eyes. It wouldn't actually let me have no eyes in. Surprise, surprise. I think there is really only 2 options here. I can't decide which one I think is the best, and they're pretty much just going to be generic for everybody. We have the Oracle optics, which basically lets us see, as you can see, enemies at 18.5 meters when it's upgraded, and then we can actually see everything else highlighted as well. Or, and I do like this one, if I'm using tech weapons, we can opt for the Stalker optics, which allows us to see enemies, but only enemies through a deeper amount of cover at 47 meters. That is up to you guys which one you prefer. We have more useful in more situations, or enemies only, deeper. And this activates basically when you're aiming. It doesn't just like automatically do it as you're walking around, but if you start aiming, that's when you'll see that everything's all getting highlighted. There is only one hand upgrade that I think is essential, and that is the Smart Link. If you want something else, you like something else because your build's a little bit less concentrated on being a Netrunner, you could make an argument for something like recoil, or maybe if you're using different weapon types, some of this could be good. For example, if you went with the cool option instead of the reflex option, maybe crit chance with throwables might be good. But there is ultimately nothing in here that makes me want to spend one of our rather tight perk points on getting this slot unlocked. I am just going to stick with the Smart Link because that improves our smart weapons, which we're depending on quite a lot, and we're saving that perk point so we don't have to fill this part of the tree. There are 2 essential ones in the circulatory system, so let's install those first. First off, we want the biomonitor. See what this does? Automatically heals you with your equipped health item. This is what we've been talking about a lot in the build setup part, and this is going to make it so that basically whenever we drop below 50% health, it uses a health item automatically. And not only does it use it automatically, it's going to give us a bonus to how much that it affects us, which is then going to compound with what we're getting in body as well. So massively important. And then on top of that, we're actually going to take second heart as well, which is basically a fail safe if we run out of heals. So this should basically never happen because we have so much auto healing now. We don't even need to care about using healing because the game's just going to do it for us at this point. And honestly, nothing else here is essential. So we can actually choose to leave this last one empty, but I do like filling up all of the spots. So I'm going to choose to put heal on kill here. Not because it's great. It is going to heal us as we're defeating enemies, but I don't really like that it's not effective against some of the bosses. If you are struggling for space, this is something that you can just remove. For the legs, there is one essential leg mod, and that is going to be reinforced tendons. This gives us the ability to jump twice. Now we have double jump, and from our reflexes, we're able to dash in the air. This allows you to travel around the game, explore, and do pretty much everything a lot easier and faster. In fact, sometimes through dense areas, you'll actually be faster on foot than being on a vehicle, as long as you have those things in your build. Integumentary system, this is where we get a lot of our protection from, and we're going to start with pain editor. So this is going to compound with one we already got. So now we're up to 12% reduced all damage incoming, and it even comes with quite a bit of armor on there, which means that we're actually going to resist quite a lot of damage. We're also going to use the cellular adapter. I believe this actually requires a perk to use, so we had to take all of those tech points to be able to put this in. We can see the amount of resistances we're getting here. Quite importantly, we have even more health item recharge speed on there, which again is just feeding into the immortality of the build. And lastly, we're going to put on Defensicov. We haven't spoken about Kerenzikov yet, but this is a mod that we're actually going to get to in a second, which just gives us some additional functionality in the build. And again, it's something that pretty much any build can take advantage of because it's just 2 pieces of cyberware, which allow us to we can slow down time a little bit and reposition whilst we're dashing. And in this case, going to give us a 90% mitigation chance. So that's a very high chance of just basically reducing any damage that's coming into us. So if you're feeling in trouble, you basically just have your Kerenzikov here, you dash, pull on your aim, and then you have 90% damage mitigation. So if you feel like you need a breather, you just double jump and then dash on out while using the Kerenzikov to get yourself 90% chance to reduce damage coming into you by at least half, depending on your stats. To compound with this, I recommend the Neofiber. This increases the mitigation chance. So we just turned 90% into 100%, and we actually get some extra mitigation strength, which means we're now going to be taking 59% less damage instead of 50. Massive survivability increase by doing that. So I do highly recommend it. Look how high we're getting on the Cyberware already. And lastly, in the nervous system, we're going to be taking the visual cortex support. So the further away we are, the more crit chance that we're going to get. This obviously just compounds with our upgrade to SMGs and assault rifles because it allows us to build up and take advantage of crit chance and crit damage much more. We are round to skeleton. You can see just how full we are looking now as a character and why I didn't want arms and why I don't care about forcing on the extra hand upgrade. On the skeleton, then, we're going to be starting out with the kinetic frame. I like this because this is going to give us even more taking advantage of mitigation and means that we actually already have 18% whenever our stamina is above 85%, which should be a lot of the time. So now we actually have a 18% chance to take 59% less damage overall. It's obviously not fantabulous, but it is just a nice bit of extra survivability for the character. We, of course, also want to have on the RAM recoup. So when we take damage, we receive RAM equal to 2.8% of the damage received. I'm not entirely sure if we get to take healing from that in the overclocked mode, but that is going to just help us in general in combat with RAM recovery. So we should 100% be taking that as a Netrunner. And you can see how tight we are on Cyberware capacity right now. Realistically speaking, I think the best pick, if you can get the space for it, is probably Parabellum, because it gives a huge increase to armor. However, probably the best way to get a similar effect is going to be to take the mitigation strength, or you can take the extra carrier capacity so that you have a little bit of convenience built in there, so you're not constantly emptying out your inventory. That's a bit of a dealer's choice there. Early on, you may opt to go with this, but you can just disassemble stuff in your inventory, and there are vendors all over the place where you can sell all of your items. This isn't necessary, it's just a nice to have. Realistically speaking, I do think that Parabellum or something like the epimorphic skeleton, where we get additional health capacity as well as armor, are probably better picks, but we just don't have the capacity. We could take something like Edge Runner to get around this, but then we're talking about taking reflexes up to 20 as well, and I don't think we want to do that. This is how my Netrunner is looking, and it basically means that we can run into combat and not have to worry too much. So let's go get to a fight, shall we? We're gonna have a bit of fun in combat so we can see how this rocks. We are on the hardest difficulty. Now, we are not like so unkillable. We can afford to stand there and let the enemy hit us, but as long as we're breeding pretty quick, we should be fine. That is the idea of what we're doing here. The idea is, if we do feel like we're in trouble, we need some damage mitigation, we dodge and pull the aim button. You can see that gives us the cooldowns up in the top left corner very quickly. And if we come into stats here and you look on armor, you'll see we get the 100% mitigation chance. So we are now taking 59% less damage whenever that's active, right? We get a few seconds of it, and we can pretty much do it as much as we want. As soon as they're gone, we dodge again, and it's back up. So just something to bear in mind, just in case you guys aren't aware of how the jumping and dashing affects movement. So I am obviously now able to jump twice, and I'm able to dash in the air. The thing that makes this really good is if you jump, dash, and then jump again, you're able to get around very far and very fast, and means that we don't really need to stay anywhere near enemies, right? Because we just jump, dash, jump, and we can just kind of be up and about anywhere. And at any point during that, we can aim and activate the Krenzikov as well. So we are very fluid and very resistant to damage, which is one of our main advantages. Before we start, I should probably also just show my main used combat quick hacks. So I like to have contagion and overheat close to each other if I can. This is because when contagion is maxed out, you can see that overheat will detonate if we use it whilst contagion is on the enemy, and the quick hack itself gains more damage as it spreads across enemies. So pretty good. Overheat itself doing quite a lot of damage. I like to have blind on there just in case I need to reset something, and again we get to replenish RAM from it. Not a bad thing to have on the go. Short circuit is on there in case we're fighting against machines. Detonated grenade is on there for a bit of fun because I love it, and ping because it should basically always be on there. We get extra damage for that being on enemies. We get to lock on faster with our smart weaponry, which is where a large portion of our damage is going to come from. Overall, these are probably the only essential ones. There are plenty of others you can use on here for force multiplying. We could make enemies fight each other. We could do pretty much anything that we want to do here, and really going to use overclock if we have to. You can run around in it as much as you want. As you can see, I like using it as a panic button or I need more damage button. Obviously that does increase the damage of our smart weaponry, so if you're facing against bosses and stuff, it is going to be a good idea to have that on. So starting out then, you should obviously ping enemies before you get into combat. That's just increasing the damage, letting us know what's around. Of course, if we wish to, we can just go ahead and start detonating items that are near things. We don't have to get straight into combat if we don't want to. But most importantly, when it comes to enemies, oh man, and he's got a cheap detonate grenade on there as well, which is hilarious. But overall, the thing you should do to start with is you should be getting on the contagion and the overheat. That basically turns him into a walking bomb, and apparently in this case he blows up twice. Right, so we can do some pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and get Krenzikov on there. Just lay out loads of fire, because that's just going to keep on continually increasing the crit chance and damage. And we can clear through enemies pretty nicely, as you can see, right? We don't have to be worried about too much. We just don't need to not get too caught out. Something scary in melee. Yeah, we'll stun you. Oh man, I didn't do contagion first. Never mind. Oh, we got enemies coming. Alright, fine. Well, we must have got some civilians by accident. Let's get out of there, look. Alright. So as you saw, I didn't even need to do anything there. Just got my nice free heal out of my heal items. Oh man, I'm gonna get police on me. We need to avoid that. Get forensic off on. Right, I'm gonna take a quick second to get rid of these police before I get into too much trouble here. Well, that turned into a complete mess. The police are now fighting the guys I wanted to be fighting. But hopefully you guys can see that we can just kind of do whatever we want here now all of the time. Because we've got great mobility and great defenses, which even against large groups of enemies means we're just incredibly survivable and incredibly aggressive. Which means against even difficult enemies on hard mode, we're able to just kind of take out enemies as we please, as long as we just don't do anything stupid.